Hello and welcome to English Show Experience. I'm ET's tutor. This is a GCSE revision video for Edexcel students doing English language, paper 2, section A and question 7. So I know that this isn't a popular question. If you haven't watched the other videos, honestly, it would be better to watch those first because it will give you loads of ideas for this question 7, the same way it does when you do the exam paper. If you're really short of time, increase the speed back play. As long as you can follow me speaking a little bit faster, you should be alright. There's a video on how to do that if you haven't seen it. But if you have watched all of those other ones, then you're in a good position to get started with this. So we're looking at both texts now. You've got to refer to both of them in your answers for part 7a and part 7b, otherwise you won't be able to get all the marks on offer. Let's start with 7a. So, the two texts describe potentially life-threatening situations. We've got a statement. Now, do you think this statement is true? That's one of the first things you've got to ask yourself. So far, the statements have been true, but that's not to say that Edexcel could put something slightly different here. So just have your wits about you, but this time it's a pretty straightforward statement. And then what we need to do is react to this statement. So identify how Smith and Chichester portray danger differently. Use evidence from both texts to support your answer. So we're focusing on differences here rather than similarities. This is great practice. And we need, we need to make sure we're giving evidence from both texts. So we want quotes, direct references, so that's little details of what's going on. And then we've got everything that we need for those 6 marks. Now, I think the first thing you need to do is probably calm down a bit because you have been working for a considerable length of time by the time you get to this. So, take a deep breath and just think about the text as a whole and what they are saying about life-threatening situations before you start attempting to write it down. So if you haven't already read the text, you can get them in the description box below, but we have got them here as well. So text 1, Bear Grylls grilled by council over cliffside slide. It's quite a light-hearted piece. Even though it does portray life-threatening danger, that's not really the focus here. It's all being downplayed with jokes, puns, little anecdotes about Bear Grylls, and the fact that this slide that is put up could potentially kill somebody is not really focused on. So overall, that's kind of the gist of Smith's presentation of life-threatening situations. It's kind of like, well, yeah, it is dangerous, but look how excited Bear Grylls is. So that's the overall gist. And then if we go on to text 2, capsize, this one is really different because it's actually quite frightening what the narrator is going through, and it's presented as being a very real possibility that he could die here. So in a nutshell, that's how they're both very different in the way they describe these situations. So if we have a look just at this very first line here, that Monday night was as foul and black a night as you could meet at sea. So instantly we have a tone of danger. There's a sense that something bad might happen. We've got this pathetic fallacy, so the weather reflecting the events. So they're all things that you need to think about when you're saying how it's being described. So here, this situation is being described as quite serious and extremely dangerous. And then, just to make a brief point so we can see the opposite in text 1, we can see the slide, however, has prompted concerns about safety because it can only be used for 2 hours a day when the tide is in. So when the tide's out, we can infer, we can work out that it's dangerous. Hopefully that makes sense. It's not really stressed here, is it? We know that the council's investigating. That's another point you could bring in, but really from this headline and the fact that we get this direct quote, we can see that Smith is downplaying how serious the slide's life-threatening ability is, and doing that through things like jokey language about grappling with crocodiles and venomous snakes, or the depiction of Bear Grylls cheerfully tweeting. Yeah? Now, it's tricky with this one to say how many examples you can give. Some people try to cover 6 ways they are different. So if you look at the marks available, you know, they're thinking a mark per point, per example of a difference, but there's not actually a requirement to provide this many points. You're being assessed on your ability to synthesize the text, to understand them together, and you want your answer to be balanced. That's the most important thing. So you need to write about both the texts. So for example, you could give 3 similarities rather than 6, but give detailed commentary and evidence rather than 6 briefer points. Now, lots of schools teach this bit differently, so the best thing to do is look over any pieces of work you've had marked and check what you've been doing and carry on as you are, but use the tips I've given about just like slowing down a bit and looking at the whole of the text and what the general message is before you start to unpick it. I really do hope that you've taken something away from this video, because I know people find it hard. If you haven't checked out last year's revision videos, they're fine for this year as well. There's not been major changes, so you'll be fine to use those as well. If you have questions, use the comment section. But yeah, just best of luck really. If you've taken anything away, hit like. If you think that maybe I can help you out in the next couple of days, please subscribe, and then you'll see all the other little bits and pieces that I'll release.